why coup d'etats are regaining steam across our continent when we thought that it was done with and that democracy was finally taking the day in Africa. We also are going to be looking at what Africans are going through in the Middle East. A very, very, very sorry stories coming out from Kuwait, from the United Arab Emirates, from Saudi Arabia. Yet Africans keep choosing that destination. What is forcing them out of the African continent to go and be sending us a very, very sorrowful stories from what they live out there in the Middle East is going to be our second topic for tonight. We're discussing this with our panelists who are in the house already. Professor Mark Anthony is a Panafricanist. He's in the house with us. Good evening, welcome, Prof.
Thank you, Mr. Leo, for the opportunity to use today concerning the great topics. I want to say good evening to fellow Cameroonians, to fellow Africans listening to us, to my fellow panelists, and to every individual out there who has concern for the state of things in Africa this particular period of time. And for those who believe that we can make a change, we are saluting you.
Okay. We're also in the company of Andrin Atem, Ebako, a Panafricanist par excellence. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. KUM LEONARD and Prof. Mark Anthony and all the viewers of Prime TV and all Africans that will be watching this program now and will watch it later on. Special greetings to all. Thank you very much.
We also are going to be catching up with Maina, Gana, the CEO of Develop Africa, all the way. Is going to be taking part from Uganda, Kampala, precisely. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to the panel. Thank you for having me today.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're also waiting for the arrival into our studios of Dr. Michael Ndimancho, who is a lecturer and a very core activist of the civil society in Cameroon. We'll start with you, Professor Mark Anthony. Can we understand what's happening across the African continent with the resurgence of coup d'etats?
Mr. Leo, when greed controls the heart of a man, there is never anything that that person will claim that is sufficient enough for him. When you go around Africa, you realize that practically there is little or no balance of power, and so individuals have absolute power when they are given the opportunity to lead. And as long as they have that absolute power in their hands, for example, you come to a nation like Cameroon, you have a president who has total authority over the judicial and total authority over the legislative. You go to different nations, the same thing plays around. And that gives now individuals to look at that particular position as might be the place where you can use in changing things. And maybe you can use it in order to exert your will. And so the more you desire it, the more the greed increases. And if you look at it, looking at the situation that just happened in Sudan, you can best understand what I'm saying. Okay. The people of Sudan went out on the street. They wanted change because an individual had been in power, might be not working for their good, but he had been there for long. And by virtue of their voices and their outings, he was forced out of power. The military stepped in and took over. Then, based on pressure, the military decided to share this power with civilians for a transitional period. And when it was just few weeks for democratic election, according to the way they had planned it, according to, in quotes, let's use the word democratic elections in quotes, which was supposed to be, power was supposed to be handed back to the civilians. What happened? The military general who had been at Wuhan, who had been in power like the president for the past 2 years, decided to call for a state of emergency, took the prime minister, and I don't know where they kept him. Such to me is an individual who has tested of power and is unwilling to let go, because he was supposed to allow a democratic election to take place. He has decided to push it to 2023 so that he can have another 2 years mandate. That is him enjoying the power. And I'm not sure by that 2023 he's going to let go. And so it is obvious that greed is in control here. But that also goes to tell us that we have a problem in Africa with what is called leadership. Leadership is having a serious problem in Africa, where we have individuals who do not know, who do not even realize that they had been put in that position to serve, not to be served. They have been given the authority to lead a people to somewhere. You discover that most of them, they do not have even a vision. They enter there by surprise. And as long as they are sitting there and they have the ability to manipulate that power, they do not have the time to cast a vision, and they cannot take the people anywhere. And that is why at the end of the day, you realize that years are passing, nothing is being done, and more problems are created. What happens? People are pushed to the wall. And as long as people are pushed to the wall, you will find them stepping out on the streets. If you go down to Mali, the same thing happened, where EBK was pushed out of power by the voice of the people. They went out to the streets. When they went out to the streets, the military stepped in. What happened? They also had the same issue, because you look at it, Goita came up later on and said the person he gave power to is not working. And he said he's going to be now the president. Go to Guinea, you'll be shocked that a man who has never actually served in his nation claimed that his leader is actually corrupt and whatsoever. We accept that. That is the issue. But what is the reason why he took that power? It falls back to greed. And Mr. Leo, it is very, very funny how such persons use few words. They talk of there's no employment, there is high levels of poverty. Those are normal things we already see based on the bad leadership and bad governance that we have from the puppet leaders that we have in place. We do not need individuals seizing power in order to give us riches, because they are not going to change anything. Any individual who takes power without a vision, if you have no manifesto you have been able to present to the people to show them that this is what I want to do for you people, this is where we have to arrive at this particular period of time, I don't think you are qualified to sit in that particular office, because you will do the same thing that the other person who was sitting there did. And so it is necessary that we understand that coup d'etats are not meant to advance Africa. Coup d'etats only help to destroy Africa further. It helps to make the world think that we are a people who are so divided. We are a people who are anarchic in nature. We cannot stay focused and work with individuals. And that, as it continues, we will accept with them that we as a people, we do not have that sense of unity. We do not have a vision. We do not know where we are going to. And so we'll keep on fighting among ourselves. We pull this one today, the next day we'll pull the next. The next day we'll pull the next, the next day we'll pull the next. And at the end of the day, our continent is slipping down. Mr. Leo, I wish that African leaders could have rushed fast to create a unity. In fact, unite Africa, create this strong, what we call African Union, which has the capacity to sanction issues like this, because the African Union we have now is a toothless bulldog. It does not have the capacity to sanction issues like this. First of all, it does not have the autonomy to impose any form of sanction upon any member state. Why? Because there is no political power in the hands of whosoever is leading the African Union. They do not have any economic autonomy. They are depending on these same nations who have money. And so at the end of the day, this particular African Union is no organization. And worse of it, the African Union is more of an extension of the European Union. And so I think it is necessary that most of these nations who decided that, okay, let us create a body that will govern Africa. I think that was based on the cry of Kwame Nkrumah and a group of other leaders. Why is it that since this is 60 years today, it has not been realized? This dream is not being realized because we have greedy individuals who are sitting in power, and they do not want to give away part of their willpower, their political power, to this body called African Union.
Andrin, Atem, Ebako, we are in the year 2021. Can we really understand why coup d'etats are becoming fashionable in a continent that is seeking emergence in the years to come?
Mr. KUM LEONARD, the emergence of Africa is not in the hands of people who are above 60 years. Okay. It's in the hands of people who still have enough years and still have energy, still have their future, have resources, have the, how will I call it, the capacity and the speed to put down in place in order to build Africa. We are talking here of Africa for African children and for those who can create and make a meaningful interest in Africa today. If we were to build a structure and we call out the political actors who are in place now and send them into the field physically to go and work, none of them can work for more than 1 minute. They will all be exhausted out of energy. So these are not the kind of people we should be talking about Africans' emergence or the emergence of Africa. As a matter of fact, if Africa decides to emerge today, it can emerge today. If the right militants and the right citizens are consulted and are brought into the place in order to charter their own future. We are living in an era, as a matter of fact, Mr. KUM LEONARD, we talk about all these coups in Africa. I think I will support the coups for one reason, because at one point, the masses they are still in a slumber where they need to get up. You have to understand that we cannot depend on growing Africa or expecting change to come at the current status quo of the leadership in Africa today under the context of democracy is virtually impossible. The Sudan, we are trying to cite, for example, of the recent coup in Sudan. Let me give a little brief statistics about Sudan. We are talking about 41.5% of its population is below 15 years. 25% of its population is between 15 years to 25 years. 15% of its population is between 25 years to 55 years. And then 3.3% of its population is from 55 above. The current coup leader who has taken over power is 61 years out of retirement. The man they just ousted, Omar Bashir, is 77 years of age. So we are talking of leadership in Africa under 3.3% of the African population. I think this is a mental damage of the African population. What is wrong with the youth in Sudan? Sankara entered power when he was 35 years old. They did not call for a democratic election. A man who kills a lion, you will not deny him the head of the lion. If Assimi Goïta has declared himself president in Mali, what is the problem? If Mamadi today declares himself president in Guinea-Conakry, what is the problem? He came through the doors of the masses, same as Goïta. The case of Sudan is a bit different, which we can talk about that later. Sankara was different. Sankara was 35 years old when he took over power and came from the doors of the masses and delivered the job. When we keep expecting, you cannot compare Mamadi and Nana Addo. You cannot compare Mamadi or Assimi Goïta and Buhari. Those are presidents that are elected from minority political parties. If you have cited all these statistics in Sudan, over 22 political parties reduce the population of 41 million people. 41% is below 15 years and not eligible to vote. 25% is from 15 years to 25 years, which majority of them also are not eligible to vote. So where are the majority? that we are talking that are going to elect a civilian government. We don't need civilians in Africa. We need armies. We need armed young men and women who are ready to change their nation, who are ready to put in resources and build their nation. You cannot be talking of building a nation, you are talking of civilians. Civilians are people who have nothing to offer. We don't want spectators. Mr. Leo, we want participants, people who are actors in building their nation. So the problem in Sudan is not the coup. The problem in Sudan is not the government. The problem in Sudan is that the masses have refused to assume their position. There's a certain age in a man's life. When you get past that age, Mr. KUM LEONARD, you have nothing anymore to offer in this life except to your grandchildren. As a matter of fact, this is the situation in which we are living in Africa. A man is 35 years old, still depends on his parents. It's only when he gets old, that's when he starts finding himself resourceful. At that point, he has nothing to offer. That's why we have many old leaders in power today. We need to get into the position, Mr. KUM LEONARD. At my age, my mother is 41. That is my age group. Why can I also not be the president in Cameroon? If we don't teach our children the things we got to know early, we will not build the right generation of people. How do you expect people of 30, 40, 50? They are expecting a man of retirement, a man who life is value. When you have 5 more years to live, it means you have nothing to offer. If you even have 10, you have nothing to offer. A man like me, I still have 50 years ahead of me. That simply means I have value and I have what it takes to be part of building my nation. You cannot take a man who by virtue of analysis, he is expired. As a matter of fact, energy is not there. Mind is collapsed. If you give him a thread and a needle to pass it through, you take him a year. So you realize that all of these things age has played into. So we must understand that the case in Africa is that the African Union should be suspended because it has not played its vital role. The African Union should have been a government where all the 54 member states which were broken down by the imperialists, knowing that the African Union is coming here to welder them and to build unity and create that sense of Panafricanism which was brought by the diaspora to make Africa a home for all Africans. Today, it is like a man who wants to possess his father's property without the consideration that the father has other children. That is what these African leaders are telling us today. They are seeming to run this nation individually, private state-owned companies on the behalf of not their own people. That is why we say that this door, Mr. KUM LEONARD, if coups want to come in Cameroon, let it come. In Guinea, let it remain there until the masses get up. Military is a medium between the government and the civilian. So if the military rises up, that simply means that it is going to mediate what is going to be good for the civilians in terms of building a new government. So for military to take over, there's no crime. But for military to keep power, that is a different issue. So if they stand on the behalf of the masses, that's a good sign.
Okay. Mr. Gana, Maina, you're out there in Uganda. You are observing the politics are operating out there in East Africa. Can we understand what is happening in Mali, what is happening in Guinea, Conakry, and recently Sudan?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Number one, there is 2 things we need to understand. First of all, we are having leaders who don't know even the reality in Africa. The leaders we have in Africa now, they don't even understand the pure reality of their own country. Number one. And number 2, as we were saying, this coup d'etat will keep continuing for the next 50 years if we are using the same system of governance in Africa. Why I'm saying that? Number one, almost 90% of African leaders, they have caught something they call feedback. They don't have nobody can tell them the truth, the reality, what's going on there in their country, and they listen. We are living with the supreme leaders that they don't listen to anybody. Whatever they think is good, everybody tell them, yes, excellency is good. That is the biggest mistake we are having in Africa. It's difficult to a head of state, a leader of a country, listening to someone to tell him you are going on the wrong direction. This cannot help you. You need to change that. The moment you start telling them the truth, they just cut you off or they fire you, they don't listen to you. Number 2, Those leaders has forgotten that our population has risen, that we have to include the youth in the governance on any country, either we like it or not. Because the younger generation have to take also over. We can't have somebody who in power for 40 years. A 40 years man can be a head of state in any country. So if you are there for 40 years, mean you have got everything on your life, you have not done anything. Inside of thinking how to build the country to make sure that the next generation can take over, you are not listening to any, mean you are expecting the chaos. That is what's going on in Guinea. That's what's going on in Mali, because Malian people find out that the leader who is ready listening to the country forward. This is what's going on in Sudan. The problem is, but they have not found any solution. We have to understand. Number two, the poverty issue. Our leaders, when they are in, they don't have any agenda. They don't have any alleviation program to make sure that the population can go out of poverty to go and do something else. Because when people are poor, they will sit down to create problems, either you like it or not. They will cause you chaos. Go and see anytime when you see the math out people, because they are tired, because they are suffering. Now, the economy also is playing a big role. How a leader, you don't have an agenda to build a strong economy in your country. What are you expecting? You're expecting a... Now, get a feedback. You don't listen to your team. You don't know that this is the time, and this is the time to make sure that you need change. Because change is inevitable. Either we like it or not, change will come. It's better to embrace change and that change to kick you out, because either you agree with change or change will force you to agree with. So how are we go about it? It's our duty to tell our leaders that don't forget the way you was running the country 10 years ago is not the same way now, because after 10 years, the younger African generation is growing more than 10%. After 10 years, so you're having more people, but you have a similar idea. More than 20 years ago, it's not going to work. The only way to move forward, we have to make sure that our leaders become good listeners. If there is a problem, they are ready to sit down to say where they are getting it right and where they get it wrong. But how many leaders you know in Africa here, they come out like in China or in Japan to say that we have been wrong. Our government has not worked for these people. We are really sorry. We will amend the things. No one can do it in Africa. What do we expect, Mr. Leo? You cannot expect peace if you don't plan for peace. We are just wasting our energy thinking about peace if you don't plan it. Peace have to come with prosperity. Without prosperity, there is no peace. Yeah, thank you, Leo.
Okay. Dr. Michael Ndimancho, are we supposed to, can you imagine that we are talking of coup d'etats in Africa every day in the year 2021? Isn't it strange?
It should be very, very strange. And of course, strange, but we nurse that, you know. Okay. We are the cause of our own problems, you know. There is always a statement that sometimes we run away from cool land to discover ourselves in first land. Why? Because in Africa, I realized that, what we are coming to realize that we are getting very, very more confused about the theory of democracy and how it is supposed to be practiced in Africa as a whole. Now, you know, there is an issue in Africa that we have become our own traitors, whereby you see your brother doing a wrong thing, and instead of calling your brothers to correct your brother, what you want to do is that you want to backbite, you want to backpedal, you want to override your brother to shine in the place of your brother. That is the problem of Africa in terms of coup d'etats. Because when you look at what happened, for example, I want to take an example of a place like Burkina Faso. Was there any reason why Blaise Compaoré should launch a coup d'etat against Thomas Sankara? Or today we are having a reason to say no, Blaise Compaoré didn't have a reason to launch a coup d'etat against Thomas Sankara. All that he wanted to do was he wanted to be looked upon as somebody who could do better than Thomas Sankara. But at the final analysis, did he do better? That is a question of research. He realized that if he is being haunted today, it is because everybody realized that he only dreamed about that kind of an El Dorado where he is going to be there and he feels that people are going to clap for him and he is going to do better than another person. But it didn't happen. Look at Ghana with people like Kwame Nkrumah. Was there a reason why a coup d'etat was launched against Kwame Nkrumah? No, there was no reason. Even look at places like Chad. Was there a reason why a coup d'etat was launched against, even Hissen Abre, you take out people like Idris Deby? Was there a reason? There was no reason. Because at the final analysis, you realize that the more things change, the more they remain the same. The more we think that things are changing, the more we think that we see that they are remaining the same. From all these coup d'etats, look at it in Africa, from all the coup d'etats, what has Africa come of? What has Africa become? It has become the very Africa we see that is not changing, that is standing on one place. That is why I started by saying that sometimes we run away from first land to discover ourselves in cool land, because we were not supposed to. And why is that so? The problem is because we have our own concept of democracy, which is not the way it was carved out in Greece. Because even the Americans do not practice the Greek democracy. Americans have their own way of practicing democracy. And they have a way, you will not hear an American actually, look at George Bush. George Bush committed a lot of crimes that even the UN should follow, the UN Security Council should follow him up. But they didn't. But they preserved George Bush. This is the way Africans are supposed to play their politics. You see that an African leader is trying to do his best. What happened is that another person comes behind and connives with the Europeans and connives with people to overthrow him. What happens? People are doing that for their own interest. They are not doing for the interests of Africans. I'm not saying that there are Africans or leaders who are not tyrants. Yes, we have talked about issue of tyranny. We have talked about issues of autocratic leaders. We have talked about issue of leaders who are governing the people with iron fist. But it's true. But let us look at it. If you have your father who is a tyrant, would you abandon the father for another person? I think that the best thing to do is to give an advice to their father. But what we realize in Africa is that the best thing for Africa that they pride themselves is in launching coup d'etats against their own very people. Why can't we sit down and discuss as Africans instead of coup d'etats? Let me tell you that when you hear the European television or what's media talk ill of an African leader, know that that very African leader is serving his people in the right manner. And that is what is happening. And the moment they start talking about against them, look at example of Libya. Where is Libya today? Is Libya a better democratic nation today before it was in 2011? Look at Libya before 2011 and Libya in 2021, where a coup d'etat was launched, and it was ended by our own Africans. Sometimes I look at people, like Jean Ping, who was the chairman of the African Union at that moment, and I know that he is regretting today why he sat and just watched things happen. Because look at how the people are suffering. I think that in as much as we have issues with our leaders, the best action is not to overthrow them. I think the best action is actually to sit them down and be able to protect our interests. Secondly, you know that when there's chaos in the country and the UN sends its elements or its army to that country, let Africans know that when the UN sends an army to your country, it is not the UN that is paying for that army. It is you, the Africans, you, the country, the citizens and their taxpayers that is paying the elements or the army or the soldiers that have been sent to that country. And what is happening? They are draining your own economy. I think that there is something about that. And going on the other side, I understand fully well that our own leaders, they get out of their reasoning and they begin to behave more Western than the West. But there is a way in which we can challenge this. There is a way in which we can be able to take them to task and to let them know that the coup d'etats are not the best for Africa. I mean, Europe too has its own problem. America has its own problem. But in no time would you hear that other leaders are sponsored to overthrow leaders in Europe. I think that in as much as we have these issues in Africa, we should come. Let us be mature about the way we go about overthrowing our leaders in Africa.
Mark and Tony, Andrin and Ebako said earlier on that leaders don't understand their countries, their respective countries, and say that they try to run things their own way, not understanding that things might have changed. And he is talking about the station of leaders today. They care very little about the welfare of their people. Who do we blame for this?
Mr. Leo, it is obvious that the leadership is to be blamed. Everything rises and falls on leadership, which implies that when leadership is bad, the country gets to the bad direction. When the leadership is good, the country gets towards the right direction. But what actually makes a leader good or bad is not their character only. It is their vision. What is driving them? What are they following? What are they going after? If you do not have somewhere you are going to lead the people nowhere. And as long as the people do not know where you are going to, they will practically not be able to follow you anywhere. And what do you expect? Automatically, there is going to be more problems created than solutions brought. And that is what is happening in our African nations, where you see chaos everywhere. We have leaders who do not understand for 1 second that they are leading a continent that is younger than them. A continent that needs them to be thinking for that generation. And the best way to think for a generation is to allow the generation to think for you, which means bring them in and let them see and present to you the things that the people of their generation want. If you want to stay in power. You see, I don't have a problem with you being in power for the next 1,000 years. If you are in that power for 1,000 years and you are serving your people, that is good. But if you are in that power and you are practically living and torturing your people with your policies, you are taking decisions that are contrary to their desires, you are not better than the devil himself. You see, we have a situation in Africa where leaders are completely cut out from the citizens. They do not live for the people. They live to satisfy their ego. And as long as they live to satisfy their ego, it is obvious that you will see coup d'etats emerge. They will come, whether you like it or you don't want it. But if you have a vision, the only reason why, for example, now when we talk, we should also know that there's also external force which also engages some of these coup d'etats. Because I heard Dr. Ndimancho asking, why was somebody like Thomas Sankara, who was a young man, who was in the right direction, leading and manning his nation towards the right direction, cut down? Why did it happen in other countries like in Libya? We also have external factors who do not want that our continent should be stable. And they plan it even if you are on the right path. Let's go look at somebody like John Pombe Magufuli, who was for 5 years, took power and straightened his country. He did not end with a coup d'etat that was like a military owned. He ended with a coup d'etat that took his life. He was killed. Now the country is being sold. As we are talking right now, Tanzania is being sold. Over. So we should not only look at that coup d'etat where the military comes in and then they push you aside. No. There are several coup d'etats taking place every day in Africa where there are external factors and there are internal factors. I've mentioned most of the internal factors, which are the people are hungry, economic problems. People are going through a lot of pain. They have health issues which are not handled. We do not have hospitals that can handle their problems. We have situations that push them out of their bodies. And they react against it. Okay. To conclude, and now look at it. You have the colonial imperialists who are looking for ways to come back to Africa and recolonize Africa. And so they strategize and send in some individuals to create more chaos. And what happens? Once these individuals come, they seize the power in order to give it back to the colonial powers. You see, look at it. Mali has brought in a new colonial master in Africa. Russia. And you go around, China is here in Africa. And very soon, you discover that chunks of African continent will be redistributed to different colonial masters. And before we know, it will be done again with Africa. This time will be slaves at home, not out of home.
Yes, Andrin, Atem, Ebako, we have seen a series of coup d'etats in Africa since the inception of our independence. Many countries have witnessed this. What has changed veritably because of coup d'etats? Has Africa gained because of this?
Mr. Liu, I will always speak in favor of Africa, being a young man who still have hope and have energy and have a lot to contribute in his society, in his nation, and in his continent. So I will never speak ill about Africa, knowing that in my generation, as an individual, I have a lot to offer to build Africa. So I will not want to. It's only people who would have crossed a certain age where they become town criers and nation criers who only cry and they have nothing to offer. But we are interested in getting people who can participate, people who can build, people who can seek in solidarity in forging the way of building Africa. We understand that Africa is messed up. We understand the colonial structures in Africa. We understand the bulldozer of the veto members in Africa. We understand also that the EU has a seat in AU. As a matter of fact, we know that Africa has been heavily possessed from the way beginning. We are talking of a democracy since 1884, 1945, at which Africa was not even yet conceived in the belly of the West to give birth to her in the 60s. So we are talking of a democracy which is older than Africa, so we cannot expect to have an Africa where it's free of, how will I call it, coups and coup d'etats and civil conflicts, when we have the presence of the multinationals in Africa. That is a daunting, aching part about Africa. If we were talking of all of this instability, coups, in the absence of the imperialists, we will understand that it's a home-based problem. We can treat it an African way. But when you have a virus that came from Wuhan, China, and it comes to Africa, WHO begins to give you the solution. That is the current state of the African problem in the level of their leadership. In each nation, we have leadership in 3 different levels. We have the head of state, we have the head of the military, and then we have the masses, or I call the civilian. So when we talk about blaming a leadership, it's true, but we must, as a people, must understand that being part of a nation and being citizens of Africa, we have a role and a moral obligation and duty to play in our society, because we cannot allow leadership in the hands only on how will I call it, only in the hands of the government. No, what do we do as a people? It's just like having a civil mentality where you expect somebody to give you, but what can you give to your nation? What can you offer to your state? What can you play as a role? If you look at the life of, we're talking about coups here, look at the life of Sankara. He took over, but he was able to lift up the country, decolonize the country away from the hands of the imperiality, rename Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, brought in their own national anthem, brought in their own flag, created home-based sufficiency in Burkina Faso, where he had nothing
to do with the foreign world. As a matter of fact, Burkina Faso was an independent state in Africa that could manage her own affairs. So when we are talking about how has this coup been in Africa, Mr. Leo, I will tell you that, you see, it still come back to what I call the African Union. The role of the African Union has not met its demands, put it that way. Because we have Sudan, which is isolated. Sudan is just coming from a 3-decade sanction by the United States. A nation sanctions a continent. It's not just long ago that they brought in a transitional government which abided with the treaties of the West, and they requested that Omar Bashir be offered to the ICC as a free gift. Now he has been judged and sentenced in 2 years. In all of these stabilities, Mr. KUM LEONARD, I want to ask that, must Africa practice democracy? Must we claim that democracy is the only rule or system or government that leads back to civilian government? Because all the other democratic leaders or coups that have brought down democratic elections, elected leaders, did not represent the civilians. Let's look at the democracy of America, that we claim that America is the one projecting democracy. America has the same democracy as China. In all the 22 states in America, when votes are conducted, it takes the electoral college to decide who is going to be the president. That means that even if it does not correlate with the majority, they still choose who is going to be the president. Same as in China. 2,980 individuals appoint presidents in China. That is the same in America. So why must Africa, judging the statistics are put down, where majority, 70% of its population is below a minor, which are not eligible to vote, which are not participants, they don't participate in politics. How then do we really say, Mr. KUM LEONARD, that it is a majority that elects its own leader? Take, for example, Cameroon, 26,300,000 and something political parties. Divide 21 million over 300. It means that probably if CPDM has 5 million, then CPDM has a majority. So if CPDM wins, it does not state the fact that the president that has come out of CPDM comes from the majority. These are all minority groups that have been created to take away the power and the will of the masses. So we cannot use democracy in Africa, Mr. Leo, and that is why I feel that if these coups, like I cited, the military is also a leader in the country, has a role of leadership in the country, equally as the masses. When the Malians went out, the military stood up as a mediator between the government and the masses in order to mediate peace between these two, and then choose the will and the desire of the masses, so that the masses will finally choose at the end of the day what they really want to put in place. So if coups can go on, Mr. KUM LEONARD, which are not in the favor of the imperialists, let coups continue. Okay. Because we have realized that if in the democratic area, we are not going to get the kind of leaders that we deserve. Let leaders, Mr. Leo, grow from the grass like seeds that grow up from a tree. We don't need leaders who come up that are like spirits and ghosts, have no connection with the masses down there. As a matter of fact, since I was born, Mr. KUM LEONARD, I'm 41 years today, I've never seen poor beer on the street. How do I, as a matter of fact, a hair in Cameroon, as a matter of fact, it means that if he goes, we should be in charge. And people who are in charge are nowhere closer to be in charge. Where with the leaders we have, we don't even see them. No connection. As a matter of fact, we believe that it's a deity who has been enthroned until he's going to die there. So when are we going to assume power? Is it when we are in our 70s? It is now that we need to put in our efforts to decide our own future. And I will continue to lastly say, Mr. KUM LEONARD, that my problem in Africa is not leaders. My problem in Africa is that the masses of Africans are not active in decision making. Let them get active in decision making, Africa will change. Okay. Period.
Gana, I want us to get to the motivations behind these coup d'etats in Africa, Guinea, Mali, Chad, and Sudan recently. What's happening? What is pushing these guys to wanting to take a part? Is it the fact that the existing governments have not brought enough development to their respective nations? Is it the fact that they have overstayed their welcome in power, or the fact that those who are initiating and driving this push organization or push agenda actually have something in store for the people. But then, I also want to ask whether there is nothing that can be done to deter this coup.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. First of all, we need to make sure that if we want to connect the dot, we have to look backward. We are not going to look forward. Now, there is two things we have to go through to find out why coup d'etat is still coming back again and again. Number one, if you discover in any country where there is coup, when you ask them, they will tell you the system of governance become obsolete, mean is not working for the country. Now, if system of governance is not working for the country, mean at the end of the day, something must be done. That is true. Something must be done. Something has to change. When we go back again, Mr. Leo, all the leaders we are having in Africa, there was just a trend to build the institution after the independence, but there was not having visions to develop the country, vision to the vision of the younger generation. You can't sit with the majority of those African leaders. They will tell you vision for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. So the moment you don't have this kind of vision, the people will tell you that things are not working. We see that people will start crying, complaining, telling that this system of governance is not working. I'm giving you an example of the French countries. Imagine the majority of the French countries, the decision has to be taken to the capital, even a small document they need. So mean the frustration becomes so much that the population will be here in a certain time. How they do it? Number one, when we go back, we find out that those leaders, when they was elected, let's say democratically or however they come to power, did they give the people the clear agenda that this is for the next 5 years, this is what we want to realize? Or the next 10 years, this is our agenda and everybody have to follow the agenda in order for us. They are not telling us anything. And if the youth are idle, you will know that there is a price. There is a price to pay. Now, the younger generation are more idle than anything else. So means that you are expecting problems. Even as a father, when the kids are not going to school, they stay home, you know they will create problems. The fact that they are in vacation, they stay at home, they will create problems because they are idle. How come you can take a masses of younger generation, millions, they are idle without having any job? You don't have an agenda for them. You did not include them in your system of governance. You did not bring any project that they can die for, they can follow, they can implement. What do you want them to do? This is the question. Because if a country, the leaders don't have an agenda of development, the leader don't have the agenda of economy. We can take example, when you go to Rwanda, you listen to President Kagame, he will give you a complete clear agenda that every day when you wake up, you can ask even a layman on the street, he will tell you the agenda for the 2040 in Rwanda because the younger generation have it and they are busy working it. But the countries you see, there is a coup. The younger generation don't have nothing to do, Mr. Leo. What do you want them to do now? The
younger generation has very little to do. Dr. Michael Ndimancho, what has changed? What change has coup d'etats brought in Africa's development?
That is essentially, when I started my discourse, I was talking about the issue of coup d'etats, Mr. Leo. Because let us go country by country. You look at, we talked about Mali. When Goïta took over, 2 or 3 months after, there was another attempted coup d'etat on Goïta. Let us be very, very careful. Now, you begin to ask yourself, I mean, this is a man, when he came out, they celebrated him. 2 or 3 months later, there was an attempted coup d'etat on him. Now, you get down to to Guinea. When Muhammadu took over, he became so unsafe. Do you know that he has he has sent about 42 generals on retirement? Because he's feeling unsafe. He says that these generals are still collaborating with Alpha Conde, and he's feeling unsafe. Meaning that he who took over is not yet the savior that they are talking about. Let us go up to chart here. It is David Jr. who took over. There are squabbles now, and the wives of Idris Deby are revendicating to take over the presidency now as we are talking. Now, tell me, for what reason are the coup d'etats? For what reason do people take over power in Africa? That is why I started by saying that we do not really know the reason why there are coup d'etats, and that we are being manipulated upon by the West. And let us open our eyes. It is true that there is bad governance, but bad governance based on what? That is the question I'm asking. Bad governance based on what? On the kind of African democracy, or the democracy that has been forced on us? Yes, people who go analytically say that there is that issue of the framework, which is called the Constitution, that is being disrespected, that people don't respect the Constitution. But what I'm telling Africa is that for Africa actually to develop now, we need what we call military rulers to be able to let citizens of every country sit down and listen.
Enlighten the sport.
Yeah, what they even call democracy avancée, because it goes to that. It's military rule. What you call in Cameroon democracy avancée is a military rule. Enlighten despot, as you call it. What is what we need in Africa now? And not, I don't want to emphasize on Cameroon, because the only person who can hold Cameroon down now and put Cameroon straight is a military ruler. Without that, let me tell you, they will not have any respect for anybody who will take over power in Cameroon. We need somebody to come up and hit his hand on the table and say, enough is enough. I'm a sacrificial lamb. I want to put things straight. This is what we need in Africa. The issue called democracy has disgraced us and has put us at the level whereby we will never measure up with any Asian or European or American country. That is what is happening. Because the time that you feel that somebody has come up and people are clapping. Yes, people are clapping because the issue of change is important. Even for his own sake, we need change. But then, the more people clap, the more we think that something really needs to be done. Because we in Africa, they are only your own brothers who go over there and they come back to backbite you and backpedal you. That is what is happening. So you look at all these countries in Africa where they are coup d'etats. Because you look at the country, you think that after coup d'etat, there should be progress. After coup d'etat, we expect development, economic development. After coup d'etat, we expect human development. After coup d'etat, we need actually infrastructural development. But you realize that after coup d'etat, the country goes right down into the mire where escape becomes chimerical. Where coming out of their present predicament becomes an issue of the past. So what I am saying is that yes, it is good because most people, yes, power is very sweet. That's what I know. You know, in Guinea, what happened with Alpha Conde was that he promised the people that when he takes over power, he's going to organize election and he's going to step down. Here's the issue of changing constitution to sit again because power is very sweet. My problem is not how long you stay in power, but how better you are pushed for the country to another level. And even if you don't push out the country to another level, there is a way in which you can be able to caution your president. It's not just about coup d'etats.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Cum and fellow panelists. I'm Eric from Limbe. Since the creation of the African leader has ever accepted a forum for reconciliation talk, less of advice. Almost all African presidents have made themselves demigods. We ask for state reforms. In Cameroon, our mediators ended up piecing blood in Kondenge prison. Okay, Prof. No. Yes. Yeah, you have something to retaliate to what he just said.
Well, I think I would agree with what Doctor have said. What we need in Africa, we need strong men. We need dictators.
Are not strong institutions?
No, we will build strong institutions later on after we have lifted up our people, when our people have gotten to the understanding of our vision for Africa. It's very important when citizens understand the plan in place. It brings them together to build a unified and strong government where the people stand behind their leaders. But when the citizens do not understand the vision of a nation or what their country holds for them, it becomes a very challenging fact. And that is why George Washington, in the period when he brought in democracy, did a 53 pamphlet pages distributed in all American citizens except the blacks, so that the Europeans who are Americans should know where America is going to. So this vision is very important, that we need dictators. Africa is underdeveloped. When America built its own legacy, they didn't build it through democracy. Europe, the same thing. Let Africa use dictators like Gaddafi, Sankara, Mamadi, Assimi Goïta. We should forget democratic elections. It has not favored since 60 years ago. Before 1945, when the United Nations was raised up, it was not raised up on the behalf of Africa. It was raised up to develop and to build a strong united front in Europe. It happens that Africa became now the subject matter at the level of the UN Security Council to share Africa, so that all of them should do well from the proceeds and the resources of Africa. So this is very important, that we will not allow our destinies be sold where they are beneficiaries in the West, causing our people to go in for voluntary slavery as though Africa is poor, when yet the whole bulldozer of the veto members, Russia is here, China is here, Americans are here, Britain is here, French are in Africa, and Africans are running, Haitians are running. It's like you are visiting a man who is not home. That is the case in which Africa is found. So we need leaders who can add values in the lives of their own citizens. In the days of Sankara, which man will want to leave Burkina Faso? In the days of Gaddafi, which Libyan will want to leave Libya? Until Ghanaians have returned back home. Ghanaians to Ghana must go to have returned back home. Cameroonians are driven away in Guinea Equatorial, a population of 1 million people. They drive a population of 26 million. So it means we don't have any value anymore. So that comes back to what we call leadership. It is your nation that builds that value in you. When you travel out, Germans are the only European countries that are not giving visa to go to America, because of their economy and value which they have embedded in themselves. This is what we need in Africa. How can Africa be this damn rich? Congo DRC alone, join America, China, France, UK, Russia. That country is richer than 5 veto powers put in place, and Africa is still poor. Mr. Liu, even if our leaders were corrupt, even if they eat what falls on the ground, can make all Africans rich.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My point is, when leaders take over power in Africa, they tend to manipulate the constitution as such, creating coup d'etats. In America, a leader who has 2 mandates and the president is changed. But in Africa, you can be president till you die. Okay? When you write, tell us your name and where you are writing from, please. I disagree with the panelists who says Africa needs military rule. Look at South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, most West African countries which are advanced in development. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the vibrant panelists in the studio. I think it's an indication that the adage that patient dogs eat the fattest bone is inapplicable at this point in time, when countries need advancement, but paradoxically leadership in Africa is characterized by greed, favoritism, and tyranny. Thanks for the choice of topic, for we are learning a lot from it. I am Ambe Emmanuel, writing from Baum in Bafut. Okay, Baum is at the entrance to Bafut. We are going to take a short break. After that, we continue with our discussions out here in our studios.
DSTV English Pack. No subscription enders and no dimension.
It's so nice. It's so nice.
Movies, series, novellas, emotions are more deeper in English language.
That part is a little dramatic.
Enjoy La Liga from the front row and the Premier League in immersion. On Nickelodeon, English is just superpower absolute.
For the surprise, please go now.
With E and One Magic in original version. Reality TV becomes real TV. And on African News and Discovery, News and Discovery shines worldwide. Postpaid programs with a DSTV English Pack option of Gana Plus and its 15 premium channels. Accessible as from 5,000 friends. Take advantage now.
Welcome back. You're watching Prime Hour on Mamidi Prime. Professor Mark Anthony. Let's look at the motivations, the drive behind these coup d'etats. Are they driven by external forces, or they're driven by persons who have worked closely with presidents and felt that the presidents were not doing enough and that they were going to do better than the presidents?
Mr. Leo, in most cases where we saw individuals who have been working closely with the president, we ended up realizing that those who actually motivated the coup d'etat were foreigners. Mm. Let's begin with Ghana. When Kwame Nkrumah was pushed out of power, it was one of his closest allies who took over power. But how did that happen? We all know the story. Let's come back to Patrice Lumumba. When he was pushed out of power, the same year that he took over power, we all know that some people say it was Mobutu who did it, who removed him from power. We know it's the West. When we come back to Thomas Sankara, who was pushed out of power, who did that? Who was the motivating factor behind that? We already know that France was behind it. You come to present day, let's go back to a place like Guinea-Bissau, which of recent just happened. Alpha Condé, after having made up his mind and said, Guinea-Conakry, pardon. After having made up his mind and told the French people in their eyes that we are cutting off. We need to give opportunity to our people to grow. And we need to determine our own developmental programs. What happened? They were cut. He was removed from power within a short period of time after those declarations. He made it in Ivory Coast and went to France and made that same declaration. He was removed from power in a short period of time. By who? By someone whom the French had been training for years. Then in 2019 positioned him in the presidency.
Yeah, but it's Alpha Condé who brought him in.
We might say it's the Alpha Condé who brought him in, but he was dictated upon to do that, because I'll be sincere in telling you, most of them do not do things because they really want to do. And let's come back and look at the case of the case that we have presently happening in Sudan. In Sudan, you realize that it is not just an issue of external or internal. Because if you look at the individual we are talking about, this Bohan guy is over 60 years, like my brother Ebako mentioned. If you look at the way he has decided to extend his leadership term, you realize that it's for a purpose. There's an agenda behind it. Who is behind? That's the question we should be able to answer. And when you go looking at almost all these coups d'etats that are happening, most of them do not happen because of just the people. They are rare. For example, we have the Ghanaian coup d'etat that happened where J.J. Rawlings took over power. When he took over power the first time, he was rightfully handed it to civilians, and he saw that the civilians were practicing more of their corruption. He came back and took the power the second time. And after that, he led that nation for 20 years. In fact, let's say for the first 10 years, because from 1980 to 1983 to 1993, that was over 10 years period of time before democracy stepped in. Then he led for 2 years, for 2 terms, which made him their main leader. And he is the person who structured Ghana as we have it today. The success we are having in Ghanaian politics today, though there are still lapses, is coming because somebody who had the vision for the people, who was working for the people, designed the constitution. But who are those who design most of our constitutions here in Africa? They are designed by individuals who are dictated upon. They are told what to put in the constitution, and they do it. And so the constitutions in themselves do not even favor the people. It is just a book that has been written in order to keep some individuals in power. And so the coup d'etats have both external and internal factors, Mr. Leo. And it is true we want to keep on somebody will say we are blaming the West. But it is a system that they have built and kept. And that system will keep on working as long as young Africans do not realize that they have a responsibility. But what I would say is this: we are not saying that young Africans can do this thing on their own. We need to give our contribution. We need to rise up. But it is time those who are sitting in power choose to sacrifice themselves in order to make this thing happen. Mr. Leo, you have lived your life. They have been able to live. What would they lose if they recorrect the system that had been placed, which has forced them to do what they don't want, according to the hearsays? If they can fix it, then allow the young people to run the nation, things will change.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Leo. I'm Elvis in Bamenda. I completely disagree with the panelists who says a military rule should take place in Africa. Looking at the situation of present North and Southwest, what citizens go through from military men makes me fear if leadership is given to them. I don't actually again see what the military leadership has taken Nigeria to, with a lot of problems they face in their economy. Okay. Yes, the viewer from Nigeria, from Bamenda, does not want a military coup. Good evening, panelists. I'm Luis from Limbe. I'm glad to listen to the program. Again, all this coup is sponsored by foreign bodies. We don't need that. African Union needs to sit up and stop listening and welcoming foreign bodies like Ghana is doing. Good evening to you. But now, this is on the rise. We have seen ECOWAS fight fiercely against such practices, but unfortunately, most of this is happening within West Africa. Is the African Union itself helpless to deter persons with intentions of overtaking sitting governments?
Mr. Liu, Thabo Mbeki has committed a crime in Africa that crime has not yet been judged. Okay. I want to believe that our generation will have to undo that mistake Thabo Mbeki did in 2002, who was the last chairman of the OAU, the Organization of the African Unity. Now, the African Union was raised up in 2002 on the pretext or prior to the September 9/11 2001 World Trade bombing center, the World Trade Center in America. The AU was set up in Africa to monitor the interests of the West over Africa. That was the essence of the African Union. Can you imagine that there will be AU? A nation will leave thousands of kilometers and enter into the heart of a continent, remove a commander, Gaddafi. It was like Africa was asleep at night when they took out Gaddafi. In the midst of 53 other heads of states, big heads, who only exercise their own tyranny over those that are beneath them to support the prices of their own enemy. They watch how America, a nation, enter the continent with no fear of all these age heads, enter, remove a commander that is highly respected in Africa. No sanction was laid. When France entered Chad, took the son of Idriss Déby, break an existing constitution. For 45 days, that power was supposed to be in the hand of the Constitutional Council. Handed it over to a son. No sanction was laid. When Goïta took over power, they used AU, they used ECOWAS like their microphone, and they began laying sanction. It came to Guinea-Conakry, they still use AU, ECOWAS as microphone. Why America is giving sanction? They have laid sanction on Sudan as we are speaking. $700 million that was to go for Sudan as aid has been suspended because of this recent coup. AU is laying sanction. ECOWAS is condemning. EU is condemning. UN is condemning. Because the coup seemed to have altered the plan in place. Oil that was discovered in Mali is rated higher than the one in Saudi Arabia that has been discovered in Mali. So what am I trying to say here is that there is a new level of politics playing in Africa today that we may not understand. The role of Ghana, Nana Addo, the role of Rwanda, the Paul Kagame. As a matter of fact, one African nation cannot do well and claim that Africa is doing well. All Africa needs to grow normally. For Rwanda to be where it is and Cameroon to be like 300 years older in space different with Rwanda, that means that Rwanda is not doing well. Same as Ghana. So what am I simply trying to say here is that there is a condition that for the ECOWAS bloc to own its own currency, as a matter of fact, ECOWAS needs to trade something as equal balance to what they are asking their colonial master. Okay. And that is why ECOWAS right now is trading Mali. They gave Assimi Goïta a condition that he cannot run Mali in the absence of any veto member. That is why he had to choose Russia. Russia was not to come in the place of the plan set in place. There was a force because Mali seemed to be standing alone. AU is against Mali. ECOWAS against Mali. How can Mali function as an entity? That is where we are talking about. So we need Africans in the diaspora to come in as missionaries. We need to be calling help from our African brothers out there. Buhari leaves Nigeria, Mr. KUM LEONARD, going for a medical treatment in UK, where in Nigeria, in UK alone, there are 740-something thousand medical doctors practicing, Nigerian doctors. Our human resources are all in the West because of bad imperial legacy policies, treaties that are never discussed in our parliament.
Okay. Good evening to you people in the studio. Mr. Leo, coup d'etat is very important in the whole of Africa because right now Africa needs a radical revolution. The old people have borrowed more than we can pay. For New Raymond writing from Nigeria. Okay, I don't know whether we need a coup d'etat to be able to pay our debt. Doctor, isn't it also because some of the presidents are not respecting democratic principles? For example, we saw what happened in Guinea, where the president wanted to stay in power. Even what happened in Chad, the president of Chad has been there for so long before it took, before whatever happened to him. But isn't it also because we see presidents in Africa who want to internalize themselves in power?
Yeah, I talked about that and I said that could be one of the reasons because there's a framework called the Constitution, which is supposed to be respected. But at the final analysis, at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, of what use is the Constitution when Africans themselves are not constitutional? It is a big issue because it is not just about the president respecting the Constitution, but it's also about the citizens also abiding by that Constitution that have been put forth. It's a framework. And of course, I think as we talked about the radicality of the change in Africa, it is important sometimes. I realize the reality of what those presidents they meet when they come on power. The reality is not the same. You see, look at, we talked about Idris Deby. Yes, I know that in 2005, Idris Deby was not supposed to go for another mandate, but he changed the constitution. Well, he refused, he continued. And so, but then, the question, I mean, it is good that we actually look at this thing very carefully, because we actually have presidents that I call pelicans. Presidents who really want to serve their nations. But although the question is, are you the only one to serve your nation? Because I have a statement that I say, there's no successful person without a successor. Because if you think that you are the only person who can bring out their country from this present predicament, who can salvage your country or your people from a present, and you think that no other person can do that, means that you are a failure. But then let us be able to think about the issue of actually radically changing a country. And I usually use this image of a pelican to say that there are some people who come up onto power. You know, before Idris Deby died, there was an interview that was connected. He was there with Alpha Conde was there, and even Tshisekedi was there, and
that was in Paris.
In Paris. And you know, the question was asked, why is it that you people cannot collaborate and actually change Africa to give it the image it did? Why is it that it's Europe or America that is coming to dictate to people what to do? And the question, you see, these presidents sometimes are desperate. Let us understand them. Because the moment you want to implement rules that are governing, rules that can be able to bring out their country from the present predicament that they have, they are still your own very brothers who go behind and backbite or actually backpedal you. And that is the problem that this African president, in a final analysis, because they what we call a manifesto when you are getting into power. In a final analysis, you ask yourself, but I promised my people these things. I have not been able to fulfill them. And time is above. I mean, you know, you feel that getting out of that presidential palace is like you have been a failure all your life. And one thing that they have to do is, maybe you think that one more term could make the magic. But then, even though I still say that there is still life after the presidency, because as we say, we're analyzing. Because some other presidents think that there's no life after the presidency. There's life after the presidency. They think that when they get there, they should be on and on for all. But we have others who have good faith, who are able to sit in and be able to change their countries and change their country and give it a new image that actually the world wants. And as I said, once you want to do that, it is the very moment that you have other people who plot against you and they want to overthrow you. So I think really, presidents, who take up power in Africa should be those people who can be able to stand their ground. And, you know, standing the ground means that what? You know, we are not talking about collaboration is important. But sometimes it is actually important to sit in and put in your policies and bring your people to follow those policies. And bringing your people to follow it means that what? You have to use an iron fist, just as Gaddafi did. You have to use an iron fist, just as Sankara did. You have to use an iron fist, just as even Patrice Lumumba did. You have to use an iron fist, just as other presidents are doing, just as what Gota is doing. He has decided to say no to France and is going to Russia. Sometimes some of these things are important. You have to be able to bring in your own policies for the good or for the benefit of your country, and to say no to manipulation.
Okay. Say no to manipulation. I'll take a few messages and we continue. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The African Union is a disgrace to African youths. It is a toothless bulldog with no vision. We should not even talk about it. Talking about African countries, African leaders is our problems. The old brains in power can care only about protecting their interests, because the Western world has taken away all our resources and we are the ones suffering. We need a new African. The youth needs to rise up and take their future by their hands, or these old brains will destroy the continent. Greetings to all in the studio. Good evening to you. Sir Peter, writing from Yaoundé, says, good evening to you, Mr. Leo. The African Union is okay. I'm sure I read that message already. Why Africa is not moving forward is because majority of our African leaders don't have vision for nation. African leaders that have vision don't stay long in power because of Western influences, okay? Yet to be proven, eh? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Please extend my greetings to the man talking against the ECOWAS, UN, and truly Africa needs to be united as one to send this colonizer out of Africa. Like coup d'etats are necessary in Africa. It's Mark Njotin Noni, okay? Hello, good evening to the panelists. Most of the time we think a powerful man should take over power to strengthen the institutions, the wrong behaviors and so forth, and yet we don't consider that the strength of the powerful person relies on the foreigners. I would think the strength of the incumbent can only be seen if after his or her ruling time the country is still stable. Max Beguni writing from Dusseldorf in Germany. Hello, this is Nathaniel writing from Mali. I don't feel you are moderator, you are a guest, an interesting debate. Assimi has a vision and we have noticed a major progress since he came in power. Okay, I don't know whether anyway you're in Mali, so we should we should believe in what the persons who are on the ground are saying. We are going to be moving on to our second topic for tonight, and I will start with you out there in Uganda. What's still driving Africans towards a difficult and precarious Middle East destination? Maina, Gana, you are observing what is happening in Kuwait. Yeah. For Africans, you are observing what is happening in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. What's happening? Very difficult, disturbing images coming out from these countries, yet every day, every second, every minute, Africans are still going that way. What's happening? How do we explain this?
So basically, number one, our democracy and our election system become a tool of distraction. And if you see that the younger generation don't have any place in the society, that's how they are moving, going to other countries. When they go to those countries like Kuwait, Dubai, like they go into Bahrain, they go into Saudi Arabia, the system living is almost different with the one we have in Africa. So they go there, they start doing things that is not matching with their culture, and it's causing a lot of damage in their society, Mr. Leo. But when we come back, let us study first to understand that, is that really democracy and election is needed in Africa? Because when we find out that some of the countries they have democracy and election, those countries are doing very well, like United Arab Emirates, like Kuwait, like Singapore, like Malaysia, even UK. UK, we can't say UK is a democratic country because it's headed by the Queen. But how these people are living so well that they are doing everything great, but we has been given democracy, but we think that democracy and election is the only way to develop the country. Did we understand really what is democracy and election, or we just borrow something early morning without knowing the system, without knowing the rule, without know how to go about it? Do we having just a head of state is the problem we are having in Africa, is the head of state, or the problem we are having is the system itself? When we go back now, what are the question you are talking about, what's going on with the disturbing images? When your country is not doing well, wherever you go, whatever problem you have, is your problem because your government does not build a system to make you stay in your country. Have you someone from United Arab Emirates around the world working for somebody? Have you seen it one day, Mr. Leo? Have you seen a Kuwaitian in any part of this world that he went and work? Have you seen a Bahrain? Have you seen someone from Singapore? Have you seen someone from Malaysia? Mean that our system is not working well. That's why people have to leave the country and to go out. Have you seen a South Africa dying because he's going to Europe? How many people from East Africa you see that they went to Europe by road, they died? No one, because their government is doing well. Have you seen a Rwandan take a road? He said that he's leaving his country. Why the people who died in the road that they are from Nigeria, from Cameroon, from Ivory Coast, from Central African Republic, from Mali, from Burkina, from Morocco? Why? Because the system of governance is obsolete, is not working in these 20th centuries. We need to make sure that we change it, because if we are using 1960 system in 2020, after 60 years, something is wrong somewhere. Like you are asking my father to use iPhone, he will never do it because he's not wired to use it. This is the kind of things that we need to think as African today to make sure that are we moving or we are going behind. Now, let's talk about African Union. Many of us in the panel complain about African Union without even knowing the structure of AU. The 54 African countries, some of them cannot even pay their part of money that needed to pay on African Union. Some of the countries are behind 5 years. Where do you want African Union to get the funding to maintain the security? Is this France we are talking about with European countries paying for us to maintain this African Union? So mean they have to dictate us, Mr. Leo. We are talking about African Union is obsolete, but it's France, the majority, the biggest funder in African Union today in 2020 and 2021 is France. So how they cannot dictate to us what to do? We need to learn about it, Mr. Leo. Let us not waste our time to blame. We need also to see where we are getting it wrong. In order to develop or to change the system of our country, we don't need the Western countries. We need to implement real things. There is no any leader in Africa today, if you want to fight poverty, and the West will say no. There is no any leader in Africa today, if you want to develop the infrastructure, build the best university, the Western country will say no. No. Let us see our part of responsibility as African. Let us not blame anybody. If we are not doing well, we don't have to say this is France, no. We need also to see our responsibility. We have 90% responsibility, 10% coming from the West. But this 90%, if we fix it, the 10% will never have power over us. Thank you.
Professor Mark Anthony, we saw a lady who just gave birth to twins in Dubai. She's in pains and wants assistance. I have read severally Cameroonians who are complaining on the treatment they receive from the consular office out there in Dubai. We have seen what Cameroonians have gone through in Kuwait and other countries. How do we explain that till now Cameroonians are still dying to go to the Middle East?
Mr. Leo, the greatest problem Africa has right now is not just the problem of politics that we are talking about. It's a problem, it's an economic problem. We have an economic problem. I just listened to Mr. Gana mentioning how nations in Africa cannot pay their dues to the African Union.
They're 5 years behind, they cannot even...
Some are 5 years behind. But the question is that the way it is supposed to be done? It is not supposed to be done like that.
Are we really poor?
I am really shocked. You know, even it is funny that it is China that came and built the African Union headquarters. Then we are still depending on African Union until we have given them a seat inside the African Union.
The European Union.
We have given a European Union a seat in African Union. What is that? So it is a complete mess, and I don't think that what Mr. Gana spoke concerning, okay, France needs it, it's the same France that needs it. We don't need money from France. We don't need money from America. We don't need money from anybody outside, because Africa in itself has it. Why I said our problem remains economic is because if we can provide solutions to the unemployment, to the hunger, many Africans will not raise their voices. If you go back, let's use an example in the days of Gaddafi in Libya. People claimed that he was a dictator, but he was building a unique nation. And he thought that that was what the entire African continent would have done. Where he was struggling by every means to push other leaders to walk along with him to establish the same kind of thing that he was establishing in his nation. He caused the people of his nation to love him because he took care of their feeding. There was a green revolution he launched that permitted a desert, Mr. Leo. That man established one of the highest irrigation projects that have ever existed.
Yeah, but his people still came out against him.
Mr. Leo, let us be sincere. Who killed him? When America entered into that country, what were they coming for? They had the few persons they have raised to destabilize that nation, and it succeeded. Now where is Libya?
It started in Tunisia.
That was the movement of a people who wanted change in their country. The Libyan case was orchestrated because of oil. We all know that. Because there was no Libyan who was crying like other African leaders who was leaving Libya to go to Europe. The only nation in Africa that did not have a dime that was owing anybody, even mighty America, who had sanctioned Libya, had debts. But Libya had no debts. Who will not be jealous of such a nation? And so now I'm sure many Libyans are running out too. But that is not the way it was supposed to be happening. So what am I saying? We have an economic challenge which is primordial. Gaddafi understood it and knew that if the people can eat, the people can have what it takes to take care of themselves. They can have their free education and do what they can do. They will not do the things that other nations are doing. And he went into it. Then went around for a mission to bring in the rest 53 different leaders to walk along with him. They were playing slow. The same thing that Kwame Nkrumah did in 1963. And he warns our leaders that if these people control our economics, they will control us all through. What happened? They allow it and no change happened. They never united. They never worked and fulfilled the dream of Nkrumah. Gaddafi was struggling to do it for them, help them to realize it. They never followed his path. What has happened? Today, African youths are dying in deserts. Some of them are drowning in Mediterranean Sea. Some have carried themselves, entered the plane and entered Dubai. Some have gone to Kuwait. We are seeing images that are not appealing. We are seeing images that are not appealing. So we need a complete restructuring of things. And if that is going to happen, there is no way it will ever happen. I love what Ebako said. If Rwanda is succeeding alone in Africa, then it is not succeeding. Yes. If that is why you saw Gaddafi going around and campaigning that Africa, let us work together, let's unite. He wanted even to create a kind of monetary system where we can have one currency. But what happened? They saw the man's vision. They saw how he was working to see that Africa can come to that place where it can control its trade with Europe. Because I want to be sincere. If Africa builds its economy, the only way to build it, they must define a currency that determines them, that gives them the ability to determine the exchange, that permits them to trade on equal platform. But as long as they will come and impose on them, tell them this is the price of what you are going to be having, we want to buy this like this, we will never excel. We will remain in that position where they will keep controlling us. So when Mr. Gana, who he is somebody who deals with the economy, says that this country needs to keep on doing this, let us look for the solution. Where is the solution found? The solution is found in us having a currency that permits us to equate their own currency, where they do not tell us how much we should sell. We tell them this is the way it is. As long as they keep dictating, they come and take, they will tell you they are helping you when they are collecting from you and enriching their own nations. We might be forgetting this. We can never excel depending on anybody from outside. We must depend on ourselves. So we don't need aid or anything from France to come and say we have funding the African Union. The African Union can be funded by Africans. It can be well funded by Africans. And so if they are lacking behind, it's because there is, in fact, look at how weak, first of all, the entire African Union is. It's a weak body. And so it is useless. People don't see the reason why they should be giving their money to it. When you give your money to a body that does not have the power to solve problems when you have problems, why are you giving the money? What's the purpose of, let's say, for Cameroon to go and contribute to the African Union? When, if there's a problem in Cameroon, the only thing that African Union can do is we condemn. What has condemn got to do? It is not a body that has been structured to fight illicit acts that are happening in the continent. It is not a body that has the capacity to hit its hand on the table and lead us get themselves corrected. And so we need to get to that place where we say this thing, let our leaders know you cannot build Africa depending on Europe. Young Africans will keep going out and they'll be suffering, and you will be the ones to pay, because at the end of the day, others will rise up and you will see more problems than you have ever seen. So there is need for that economy of Africa to unite. And before that happens, we need to come also politically and unite.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. I live in Britain. When the guest panelist said Britain don't practice democracy because the Queen is the head, I don't understand what he meant. Britain is a democratic nation, but it's in Britain. Africa is the present, not future. We have everything in that part of the globe, but the fact that we have allowed the West to manipulate us because of our stupidity and egocentric mindset, we are going to keep on suffering. Good evening to you, Bate, writing from Britain. We Africans need to start thinking like this young lady for us to free from the Western imperialists, in that we will understand that what we are running after in the Middle East can be found here if we make ourselves job creators, not job seekers. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The problem of Africa is the African leadership and greed. Let's look at the progress Ghana has made since Jerry Rawlings changed and introduced a democracy. Andrin, Atem, Ebako, are we misled to think that the Middle East is the El Dorado where we can turn our fortunes around?
Mr. KUM LEONARD, you know, there's a portion in the Bible which talks about how the Israelites became enslaved in Egypt. They were not enslaved because the Egyptians took them as a colony or colonized them or captured them.
They went down there.
They went down there. That's what I call voluntary slavery. And that happened because there was an occupation of 10 foreign nations in Canaan, a land which was promised as their heir, a land of milk and honey. So that simply tells you that Israel went into captivity because of imperialism in Canaan, and that is the same today in Africa. As long as the multinationals are in Africa, the whole bulldozer of the veto members are existing in Africa. And Africans are running to Europe. Africans are taking the sea and deserts in search of greener pastures because their nations have failed in getting the right structures in place to favor their own citizens. How do you explain to me that OAU, which was not founded by African fathers, they were founded by Africans in the diasporans, brought it home and settled it in the midst of 33 head of states in Africa that came together in 1963 to endorse the agenda of the OAU. And he took Thabo Mbeki in South Africa, a man who sold South Africa in 1994, 93, 94, changed OAU to AU after the 9 September 11 of the World Trade Center bombing and set up AU. How does a man set up a business and then another man has to provide him capital? It tells you that that was not a man's agenda to set that business up. Because before you go to set up a business, you should have a capital to back your plan in business. So if the man is telling us that because African member states are unable to pay AU to support it, It did not come from Africa. It did not derive from the spirit of Africanism. This AU was not created by our founding fathers.
Yes.
Number two, please permit me. You have the mass exploitations of resources and colonial taxes in Africa. You are telling us that we are unable to support AU. France take 500 billion from 14 French countries, and you tell me that we are unable to support AU. No, that's not our problem is not supporting AU. Our problem here is that the agenda in place in Africa, each of these 54 nations are tied separately. That simply means one man cannot help the other man because they are separated by colonialists who have a particular agenda for each country, assuming that it is their own, and that is why they determine which government should be in power in Africa. We should not forget the history we are coming from. We are coming from an Africa that was sold. We are coming from an Africa that was colonized. We are coming from an Africa that had been through the period of post-colonial rule. We are talking of an Africa that was reborn in 1960, where the colonialists gave independence to its country, which were negotiated on certain conditions. Cameroon is another case study. When Nwebe stood up here in 1957, he was crushed down. Did anyone elect a president in Cameroon? In the beginning, the answer is no. Did any other one elect another president in Cameroon as a second president? The answer is no. So our presidents are being appointed.
Yeah,
you cannot read Mr. Leo.
You are talking about, I'm talking about Africans going out there. Let just react to this. Greetings, Mr. Leo. I believe Christianity contributes 90% of African youth immigration. They have made the youth think that being in Africa is a curse, while traveling to the west or east is a miracle. For you, Raymond from Nigeria. But we also understand almost everybody think that the sure way to succeed is to leave Cameroon.
Mr. KUM LEONARD, that has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with religion. You cannot reap where you have not sown.
Okay.
How do you expect a government to favor you when you did not put the government there? That is the most challenging part. You see, you cannot tell me why am I running out. I'm running out for what? I need to play a role in my country, whether the government or my nation likes it or not. It's my time. I need to give it my best in order to see how I can contribute in building my nation. If I cannot do it, who should do it? That is the mentality we should have.
Okay.
This is very important. So it has nothing to do with Christianity. Christianity has its own sector.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with why Africans are living out.
Doctor, how do we understand? We have seen girls crying from Kuwait, crying from all other countries, yet all of us still want to go there.
That is actually...
is it a miracle or so?
Well, it's a mirage. It's rather a mirage that you think that there is something somewhere.
Okay, he was not... those who are suffering are unlucky.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, just say, I would not like to say they are unlucky. Those who are suffering are following a shadow that actually they cannot touch. Mr. KUM, I have a friend who left a job in Cameroon that was paying him 450,000 francs a month to go abroad. Is that not a curse? You leave a good paying job because you want to go abroad. There is this issue of country A or continent A and continent B that is beating us. People think that anything that comes from Europe or America or the Middle East is the best, and that we who are in Africa are cursed. That is what they have made us to understand. Now, at the final analysis, sometimes you say that those who criticize slavery in the early 1880s or whatsoever, I mean, they didn't have a right to criticize. Because Africa needs Africans to develop. If you think that you are going to go to where it's already developed to live a better life, then there is a problem. There is this issue of competition that people give a very, very different image of what Europe is all about. Because you have had your neighbor or your brother who was in Europe and he sends some money back here, or he built a very, very big mansion, you think that the only place where you can survive and build a mansion is to go to Europe or in the Middle East. That is where there's a problem. Now, we have refused to partake. I usually want to judge the factors that cause people to immigrate. There is factors from the point of departure, and there's a factors from the point of destination. We look at it the two ways. First of all, our first topic, we're talking about coup d'etats. We have understood that some people run away from this crisis.
Well, what happened in Afghanistan?
Voila. People run away. That we understand. So we cannot wholeheartedly condemn those who leave their countries, because there are factors that make people to leave their countries. Some people run away from political issues where they are being haunted politically, and they run away, I mean, to get to Europe. That there we have to understand. Some people rather look at what is happening in Europe, and they think that the best life they can live is in a country which is already developed. And that is where we Africans, we have a problem. Then you think that you get to the country that is free of diseases, a country that is free of suffering, famine, and all those other things, and you think that you live a free and Acadian life, that free of anything. That is where the problem is. And the issue is, our African countries need to take this into consideration, that the issue of actually always importing and not exporting make us understand that the only way in which we can enjoy the best economy, or the best economy only found across the board. That's where the problem. Professor Mark talks about economy. It contributes hugely to what is happening. Now, if you see what most of these young people spend to travel abroad, then you ask yourself, but if they use what they have spent to travel abroad, they can make it big in their countries. But you find that some people even sell their houses, their parents sell their houses, they borrow huge sums of money from the bank for them to travel abroad, and then to go and start crying that they are suffering where they are. That is where the problem is. So we need a lot of sensitization from our government to let the people know that if your country needs to be good, you need to be part and parcel of that nation building for it to be what you want it to be. Don't think that there is a kind of an El Dorado somewhere, then you go and then you enjoy. We can have one or two cases where people get over there and they are flourishing, and then they come back, they are branching a lot of things. But then we have to have a rethink that, because when you look at the kind of suffering that some people go through the desert, I mean, all that they want to do is, I listened to somebody who said, I better suffer in a foreign country than suffer in my own country. And then I'm asking myself, what suffering is somebody talking about? Is somebody talking about food, not having food to eat, or somebody talking about not being able to secure a better future for himself and for the family, or somebody talking about the government that is not able to give? Well, we have talked about government being tyrant, some people being leaders being tyrants, but I think that it rests very much on us, the citizens, to be able to know exactly what we want for ourselves. Some people have refused and vehemently refused to be partakers in the construction, in the development of their countries, but they want the milk and honey from that country. And once they don't have it, they begin to think that the only actually life that you can enjoy is across the board. So I think we should be able to study very well, and that is why countries need to sensitize themselves. Let leaders actually be leaders that are vision givers, leaders that are able to make the youth, because most of these people are the youth. And you know that if the world is changing today, it is because of their aspiration, it's because of the zest, it's because of the zeal, it is because of the eagerness of the youth to change the world. So of course, and this eagerness lead them to be able to go where it is possible for them to excel. In terms of education, let us be able to give actually good, open infrastructure for education, and give openings for students, for you to go to school. In terms of health, let us be able, if today a minister has a foot surgery and goes to Europe or to Switzerland to have a foot surgery, why will youth not go over there? Because they think that that is the only place where they can have a better health. Okay. And that is why we are asking our leaders to be responsible.
Mr. Gana, you are in Uganda. You have seen how Cameroonians live across the globe, specifically in the Middle East. Is it all rosy out there?
It's not clear. If you ask me, 90% of people who live in Cameroon, because they don't even know the reality, and they are, the majority of those people, they just sell them a fake dream. You know, those lies, sending selfie with the beautiful places, maybe make some little money you send to your parent or whatever. But when you go to the reality, going out there to make money is, you are not making money, you are just suffering. Why? Because when we find out in Africa, when you are trying, when you are doing your best, you succeed more in Africa than any other place in this world, either in America or whatever. It's just the stories, you know. People are thinking that the moment you leave your country, you can get a better life. There is a say in America, wherever you are, there you are. If you don't have nothing to offer to your country, your head is empty. Wherever you go is going to be the same thing. You will only cause people trouble. Because if you tell me to leave my country and to go and work as a nanny or as a house help or those kind of things, am I living? Am I living or am surviving, Mr. Leo? Some of the people, they just sold them fake dreams and follow people to go there. At the end of the day, they find out they are not making anything. You see the video going around that a lady from Ivory Coast, she sell her shop more than 2.4 million CFA to go to Europe. How you're having a shop that 2.4 million, you are doing well with your family, you follow desert to go and die in desert. Mean that we are not intelligent. The majority of our people who go into the Middle East, what kind of job they are doing? House help. Is this a job? Why live in your country? It's not rose out there. Me, I travel many countries. I've been in Middle East and been in Europe. I live in America. I find out the best place to live is in Africa. When you live in Africa, you will make it. If you did not make it in Africa, you will not make it anywhere. Let us not lie to ourselves. The people who say that going to Europe is just a wasting of time and energy. When you call total of Cameroonian abroad, when you call all their assets, they are not richer than Muhammadu Babadan Pullo. Mean that they are not doing anything out there. You call the total Cameroonian living abroad, their asset cannot be richer than Muhammadu Baba. There are more than 2 or 3 million people. So mean that Africa is better than any place in this world if we know what to do. So we don't need to leave Africa to say we are going to Middle East just to be a security guard, a nanny, a house help. Which kind of job are we doing, Mr. Leo? It's not rose out there, I can assure you. And I can tell my brothers and sisters that they need to continue to stay in Africa. Africa is the best. Thank you.
I don't know. Is that the same message you have? Because we are going to talk. You have 2 minutes. He has 2 minutes and 2 minutes. Is that the message you are giving out there? Yeah. You have been in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, I would 100% buy his idea and his opinion. As a matter of fact, the world is in Africa. Let us not deny that. Any African who is running out of Africa should be blind to see how governments of the West are settling in Africa. Even in the midst of insecurity, they are well settled. It means they are not even ready to leave anytime soon with all the insecurities in Africa. So I think that we know it's not, I mean, after being 10 years abroad in many European countries, we know the secrets in it. There are people who left here as lawyers and they are wandering over social benefit. They have no productivity. They cannot even do sports. Their life has become useless. There are Africans there who cannot even come back home. They don't even have means to come back home. You have, I mean, you have all groups of people, but the analysis I like which he did was putting all of them together. Their worth in terms of finance does not meet the richest man in Cameroon. That means that we can do better in Africa than do abroad. No, that is a simple truth. So
the richest in French Africa.
In French Africa, yes, Dampuro. So what we are saying is that the definition of being poor in Africa today is the inability to earn more than what you spend. Africans are spending more than what they earn. And that is why you realize that we are bleeding, because with all the efforts people make here, they earn very little based on what their output demands. And this comes back to economics and comes back to leadership. Until we begin as Africans to make in the right input and building the kind of government which should reflect us. That means that we need to get involved and get in charge. Okay. If we only expect to get and nothing to give, we cannot reap where we have not sown.
Okay. Yes. How do we curb this?
Mr. Leo, I will begin by saying that the fact that you entered aeroplane and went to the United States or went to Europe or went to Middle East, yeah. I'm just putting it together, does not mean that you have already succeeded. Why? Because a lizard that entered plane and arrived America, arrived Middle East, will not become an alligator. You remain the same. That's going to pin the point where Mr. Gana said, your mindset, as long as it did not change, even if you change your geographical location, you will not change your situation. So it is necessary that we begin by understanding that the problem we have in Africa is a mental issue. We, first of all, need to unenslave our minds. Then we need to build the capacity that permits us to succeed at home. Why? Because, to be sincere, everything is found in Africa. You will be shocked that those nations you are rushing to go to are looking for ways to come to Africa. And you are rushing there. You abandon the riches here and you run over there. I know we will always put it on the government. Yes, the government has its part, but each and every one of us has a part to play. Your responsibility is to, first of all, develop yourself in order to be capable of positioning yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that come your way. If you are unable to solve problems here in Cameroon, you will not solve them in Kuwait. You will not solve them in Dubai. You will not solve them anywhere. You simply become a slave. You work for people expecting handouts. And as long as you expect handouts, you will be used the way they want. And so at times when you travel, I think you should already know all this. With all the other videos you have watched, with all the complaints that are coming, you still want to move there because you think that that's a place to succeed. You have decided to be a failure. And so there is no need for you to travel knowing very well that you are going out of this country to go and get fully involved in pain. Then you complain when you are in the pain. Yes. Let's make that choice to remain in Africa. Build the Africa we want for tomorrow. That is the only thing I can tell you. If we don't remain here and build it here, somebody else will do it and the person will control us here at home.
Yes, but there are some success stories out there.
Mr. Leo, there are always exceptions to
the renowned boxer went through
Mr. Leo, there are always exceptions to every rule. And exceptions will never be used like the rule.
Yes. Okay.
So we are not saying.
We're out of time now, Prof.
No, you said something which I needed to intervene. Okay, it's okay.
I was adding to what you were saying.
Okay.
Mr. Leo, keep it on. My fathers, you all are doing a good job over there. I'm called Mr. Rene from Moyuka. Good evening to you. Greetings. Understand that Christianity is not a religion. That's what Africa needs to know. Awa is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Africa got geniuses, yet a majority of them are manipulated by external bodies. And if Africa should emerge as we want it, it's possible, but we'll bring global external grievances that can possibly lead to another world war. Nothing good comes easy. John Talbot is writing from Kumba. Good evening. Mr. Leo, I'm Fabrice from Limbe. I want to say most French-speaking countries' economy are going down because of the bad government governing us. More so, many Africans go to the European and Middle East countries because most African countries, case study Cameroon, lack the spirit of unity. Let them open entertainment industries there for young Cameroonians like me and many more looking for such opportunities, but we lack funds. Instead, our fathers who decided to die in power to carry our money to Paris, let them build up our entertainment foundation. Let's learn from Nigeria. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and your panelists. Most of these images from the Middle East are displayed in social media as our politicians are making us believe that there is no authenticity in social media. Thus, we are ignorant about the truth. Kenneth, writing from Douala, Africans are stupid. They depend just on the white man. How will they grow? Daniel Cliff, Flyboy, writing from Chang. Hi, is Irich from Bamenda. Africa just needs leaders with people at heart. Africa leaders need to change their mindset and think of a better Africa of tomorrow. Yes, one last word. Yes, but some persons must go out for studies now.
Of course, they should go out for studies. And you just made mention of some people who have succeeded. And I want to say that there is no guarantee. I mean, we cannot say that perhaps if those people remain in Cameroon, they wouldn't have succeeded. And that is why I want to emphasize on the fact that the government should open up avenues for the youth to excel. I think that people like Ghana, if they were in Cameroon and he was given an opportunity to excel in Cameroon, he would have excelled in Cameroon. There is no guarantee that maybe he wouldn't have even been where he is today. So the only issue is that when he looked up, right and left, he didn't see anywhere where he could be able to freely exercise, I mean, his own profession or whatsoever, and that is why he looked on the other way where there is salvation. So I think the government should first of all think about the education of the youth. Most of these youths are very, very frustrated. Most come out of school, and some of those who go out there are degree holders. I mean, they look left and right. They don't see anything they can do. And the only thing they think they can do is to go to the Middle East and work as house helps and whatsoever. Meanwhile, in Cameroon, if we open up avenues for them, education, and guarantee them jobs and reduce the rate of corruption in Cameroon, where wealth is shared equitably in every region, in every division, in every subdivision, and then these youths are going to look back and they will stay and they will build up their countries rather than going across the board to build the countries of other people. So I think the responsibility to lies with the government, as well as it also lies with those who are traveling. Let us not think that, okay, traveling is, I mean, the panacea for everything. Because what you spend in traveling is something that you can invest in Cameroon and make Cameroon, or make Africa, and make Africa a better place. I mean, look at even some of these these foreign companies that are in Africa. Sometimes it's good to learn from them, because even in Africa you find these companies, these foreign companies from the Middle East, I don't want to call the name, who maltreat the workers to the, I mean, and you know that if it happens like that in your own country, abroad in their own country will be worse. So let us be able to learn from what is happening. And as you say, I know that some people say, yes, I better suffer in another country than in my own country. And they think that, okay, when you are living, it's either to do or die. But I think people should not be much more disillusioned. I think there is still hope. At the end of the tunnel, there is hope. And that we should think that there is hope and believe in ourselves and help our nation or our continent grow to be where other nations are okay. As we are going.
We are out of time. We have to end at this juncture. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. KUM LEONARD, and good night to all the viewers.
Professor Mark Anthony, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo, and to every Cameroonian and African who was watching.
And also to you, Dr. Michael Ndimancho, thank you.
Thanks so much, Leo, and I greet the people of Noni, and I say them. My media prime is with them, and I think they watch it.
The people of Menchumen.
Of course.
Okay, we also want to say thank you to you, the CEO of Develop Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you for having me, and thanks to the panel for sharing our wisdom and our knowledge. Thank you. See you next time.
Okay, we also want to thank the production team, Eli Desmond, and all of you at the broadcasting. We also want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program. We want to thank you, Tabi Tambe Brian, who is supervising the work we do out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.